Why or when did the natural childbirth world get so conspiratorial? You're on it about it being related to anti-vax mindsets. There's a very large, growing segment of our population that rigidly anti-science and have been damn near brainwashed by the far-right pushing aggressive anti-intellectualism. I think it's just an upward trend of the anti-vax era and natural ideals, etc. I had an elective C-section and had a lovely experience. My best friend went completely natural. A lot of Instagram has so many anti-hospital things. Unfortunately, I think a lot of women do have bad birth trauma, and with social media, it's talked about more openly. But it goes to a 180 where it's fear-mongering every hospital doctor is going to treat you terribly. It's usually the anti-vax, essential oil-loving, conspiracy type of people who are like this. I had a guy friend tell me not to get an epidural when I was pregnant. He said that it's going to affect the baby. I told him that he shouldn't be commenting on something that he doesn't have experience in. Just because you're a dad doesn't mean you gave birth. I got the epidural anyways, and it was the best decision ever. My baby was fine and is still doing great. Wow, I had no idea it had gotten like that, but I had my son 20 years ago. I ended up doing natural birth, but I had a great midwife and there was a nice natural birth place in the hospital I could have him in case of complications. I wouldn't have wanted to be at home and certainly not without a midwife. People have died during childbirth, and I don't know why you'd take extra risks if you didn't have to. Seems far more likely to have birth complications than any weird hospital conspiracies. We can share our horror stories instantly with hundreds or thousands of people, so we constantly have a new fear unlocked, and seeing the one after another makes it seem more common than it is. But then again, for the US it's worse than it should be when we compare the statistics with other countries, so that validates the stories we see on social media. Same reason as other medical paranoia, because of legitimate fear of medical wrongdoing. From routine episiotomy to husband stitch to being casually manhandled by strangers when there's no emergency, to having the kid taken away because you tested positive for opioids they gave you during labor. A lot of women have needless trauma from what should have been an uncomplicated hospital birth. I'm not saying out of hospital birth is perfect, it's not regulated enough to even be consistent. But there are a lot of legitimate concerns with hospital birth that doctors and nurses tend to dismiss rather than address. Russia has devoted extreme budget to spread anti-authority conspiracy theories. They add to the existing disdain for authority and factionalism. The strategy documents show they are to infiltrate anti-vax, alternative medicine groups and work to radicalize them further. It is not a full explanation for this, but it definitely contributes. So glad I'm beyond the childbirth stage. I did one at home with midwives, wasn't a great experience, almost ended us both, however, they educated us well. We were broke, insurance would not kick in for labor and delivery 1986, waiting periods were legal. Second, had at the hospital. It was fine, nurse was insistent she could do the UV. After 2 tries I said nope, get a PH cabotomist. You're not poking me again. I was induced. I had my acupuncturist come in 1999. Best thing ever, took away the back labor, had never experienced that before, it's awful. Acupuncture took care of that and helped with labor, so they could take off pitocin. By far an easier labor and delivery. Something to remember is there's a very large section of social media that's designed to keep you afraid angry. People are more likely to view things that upset them, so it's what gets pushed by algorithms to drive engagement, especially people in a position like being a parent where it's easy to get on the train of thought I need to do this or am a bad parent, me baby won't be healthy or smart. There maybe are no stupid questions, but there are a lot of stupid people, especially in the US. As a person who lost one of the 800 people in America who die each year due to childbirth complications, this behavior is disappointing. As someone who is old enough to remember the very last of mumps and measles and polio, this behavior is disturbing. There's a general trend going of distrust of authority that extends to the medical field, and there are definitely some valid points sometimes, but most of it spirals out of control, mainly due to internet influence. With everyone having access to all information, it's easy to find data to back your claim. It's infuriating because especially in the medical field, misinformation can be harmful or even deadly. I had natural midwife attended births with all 3 of my children, but I decided this after research that included peer-reviewed journals. I just did not want interventions that would lead to worse outcomes and even more interventions. But I fully understand when those interventions are needed to save lives. Many interventions are done in certain hospitals to speed things along. But I was led by the science, so of course I am not anti-vax at all. I also had a backup option on call and had regular appointments and ultrasounds to make sure I was a good candidate for home birth. I think this new home birth free birth trend is the opposite and completely anti-science. It seems to be mostly led by religious beliefs and popular with fundamentalists. I met some other moms in birth class and they were deaf doing natural birth for the fundy Jesus cred. The other moms I met going natural were mostly military. Apparently, if you don't want to give birth in the military medical system, your only other choice covered by insurance is a midwifery practice. At least a decade ago, people with no medical background have been playing. But did you really need that C-section or epidural for quite a while? I suspect part of it is people being able to share birth trauma stories and medical staff sometimes being rude and unpleasant. No one wants to be left feeling helpless in a time of need. It sounds like you went way far down the rabbit hole. Both my babies were born at home, so I did get a good taste of the crunchy home birth community. And yes, there were some folks toward that far end of the spectrum, but they were by far the minority. Most seemed to want as little intervention as possible, but want the option available in case things go south. The people I met online and in person were largely what I would consider normal. Some did not vax, but many did. I really don't think free birth is that common. Even the Amish in our area use midwives. I believe the same as you until a lot of my friends who gave birth were treated like shit every step of the way. I'm on my own journey, and I recently read Birth Control: The Insidious Power of Men Over Motherhood by Alison Yarrow. It was eye-opening and a lot of it was supported by my friends' experiences. I'm pro-modern medicine, pro-woman, etc. But man, the commodification of birth in this country is out of control, and we don't have much to show for it. A very high C-section rate, a very high maternal mortality rate, no postnatal care for mothers, no policy support, and all that going into it with all kinds of obstetric violence? Hard pasta. I'm a pretty crunchy person, but I trust science and I've had an interesting experience with this over the years. I want to point out that there are still some upsetting, overly political, and medically unnecessary things that happen in some hospitals. I think that's what started it, but the conspiracy theorists have taken it way too far. Wow, I'm glad I read this. I had no idea. My last baby was born 25 years ago, and the midwife doula popularity was just beginning. It's such a shame to hear this.